little bit clunky and a little bit slow tonight. Nothing that we can do about it. Absolutely nothing at all. And there we go. Click on everything. Make sure everything's working fine. We are working. And you see, this is the banner from Facebook. We are having Dale Kaczmarek tonight. But first, Bones, hit the intro. Let's go ahead and get this party started.
Warning, the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers and or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman featuring Bones. Catch us on Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, Stream, and everywhere else you catch your podcasts. And of course, WLFD-DB.com. Now, from the backwoods of southeast Arkansas, right beside the Bayou Bartholomew, the longest bayou on the planet, broadcasting from downtown metropolitan Cane Creek Township, here is your host, Len Dorman.
Good. Whenever you're seeing me, again, this is Len Dorman. Here's the banner, and we're going to take that down. Although I'm sure everybody would rather look at the banner than my ugly mug. But, you watch the show, you get what you get. Anyway, we're going to bring in Dale Kaczmarek real quick, and we're going to talk ghosts tonight. Sound like a deal, Dale?
Sounds good, my friend.
How have you been?
I'm doing good. I'm busy as usual. I got all kind of things going on this year. Probably the most conferences and speakerships and places I'm going to be investigating this year probably than any other year. So I run out of weekends so quickly in the summertime, to do these things. And fortunately, I only have a handful of dates left throughout the rest of the summer. And then, of course, October comes, and then I'm usually busy around Chicago. So, I'll be going down to the Non-Con 7 down in Poasttown Elementary School. I've got Kathy Kressel's conference I'll be doing in Haunted Rockford. I got some other paranormal things. I'll be going on to the meet and greet down in Indianapolis as well. I got a lot of things going on this year. And of course, I got my convention that I'm putting together. It's a brand new convention at a brand new venue that I'll be doing in October. So,
since you brought that up.
I'm sorry?
Since you brought that up, what's the story there? It sounds like a very intriguing venue.
Yeah, the conference is going to be on October 16th, which is a Sunday. It's going to be from 11 o'clock in the morning to 7 or 8 o'clock at night. We are going to have quite a number of speakers. We have Kathy Kressel from Haunted Rockford will be giving a talk. I have my friend Jeannie Chilton. She was the former director of PREOM, which was the Paranormal Research Investigators of Missouri. She's going to be giving a talk on near-death experience and out-of-body experiences and consciousness. And then my friends Larry Eisler III and Dan Norville are going to be talking, I believe, about the ghosts of the Black Hawk Wars, which is here in northern Illinois. Tony Sobolski is going to be giving a talk with American Ghost Walks. So he does basically tours here in the Chicagoland area. Mike Smith and possibly John Klimnick will be talking about haunted cemeteries and preservation. Psychic, who I've never met before, which sounds very interesting, Rita Mae Moore will be talking about Beyond the Veil, True Stories of a Haunted History Tour Guide. Sylvia Schultz, which many of you are probably familiar with, has written books on the Peoria State Hospital complex in Bartonville. She'll be giving a talk. Dean Thompson and Nick Hansen will be giving a talk called Paranormal Pickers Tribute. And my friend DK Prince, Drew Prince, will be giving the follow-up the last talk. In fact, I got so many speakers, I'm not going to be able to talk this year. So I'm going to try to squeeze in something at the very beginning, or maybe somewhere in between, that I can say a little bit about myself and talk a little bit about myself when I'm there as well. But not only do we have speakers going on the entire day, we are going to be having there's going to be psychics to do psychic readings. There'll be tables and places that you can get readings from, and all different types of readings. There'll be a number of vendors available, books, DVDs, I mean, all kind of different things that they're going to peddle there as well. And we're also going to be doing mini paranormal investigations down in this, what they call the haunted underground artesian well. Which is kind of creepy, and we've had some stuff happen there in the past. Now, the building actually is an old brewery, and it's always been a brewery. It started off, I believe, all the way back with John Bielfeldt. Started this brewery. It was called the White Bear Brewery. It was called the Bielfeldt Brewery. It had a lot of different incarnations. For a while, it was called Widow McCleary's. It was a restaurant. And it was about that time that I discovered this place, and we used to run my ghost tours, excursions into the unknown there. We would stop there, and we would she set up a very nice buffet for us, that was included in the price of the ticket admission. Then we were able to go into the underground artesian well and do a little exploring down there, and some small mini investigations with the group. Then, unfortunately, she moved on to someplace else. The place kind of closed down for a while, and it was most recently opened now as the Thornton Distillery, owned by a man named Andrew Howell. And I've connected with him here in the last several months, and we decided to put this together jointly as what was called the Midwest Spirit Fest. So we have links up right now. If you are not a friend of mine, or a Facebook friend or anything like that, you can find if you can go to Eventbrite, which is a ticket sales outlet online, and just search for Midwest Spirit Fest for October 16th, and that'll pop right up. Basically, the tickets we're offering right now are for early bird tickets for the whole month of August. The tickets are only $10. And then starting in the beginning of September, they'll jump up to $15. And then from October 1st through October 15th, they'll be $20. And then if you don't get them, then there'll be $25 at the door. The investigations are $10 for approximately 20-25 minutes or so, something like that. We haven't exactly hashed that out exactly. I thought initially it was going to be about 15 minutes, but I think that might be too short. So we might be doing like 20 minutes, 25 minutes down there. And that'll be run by some psychics, maybe possibly by some of my team members. And there'll be food and refreshments available for purchase. Alcoholic, non-alcoholic beverages, because it is a restaurant and bar as well. Both upstairs and downstairs. It's a beautiful venue. They're fixing it up very nicely right now, and I think it'll be a great time. Hopefully, if this works out really well, I mean, we'll make this an annual thing. He wants to make this an annual thing, and I thought this might be something we could do. Basically, I'm getting the venue for free, so that's always nice. And then what we take in is pretty much free of all the renting of a venue. We also are looking at different things we can do there as well throughout the day. We will have plenty of room upstairs. There's a big giant room. As soon as you walk in, there's free parking available in the back, and I think it'll be an interesting afternoon there, afternoon and evening. So people that come, they can purchase food there, and they have a very good food. They have their own particular brand of their label, if you will, of their beer and their beverages there. It's, instead of calling it Drop Dead, it's called Dead Drop. So that's what their brand is out there, which I think is kind of an interesting little play on words, considering we're doing a paranormal conference there as well. And I had thought about the idea of maybe running a ghost tour afterwards, but I don't think that's going to be able to fit in, because we have to clean the place out that evening, and I have to put it somewhere. So I was going to bring the van up there, but I figured maybe that's something we could do in a later date or something, or maybe if we have more vehicles that we can bring to kind of transport all the stuff that we need to bring in there, that maybe we could run a shorter tour, directly out of the venue that evening for a couple of hours and take people around some haunted sites around the south side there. So these are things that we're also looking into doing, for that day. Unfortunately, all the speaker slots are full, unless somebody can't make it or drop out. And I already have a waiting list on that. So if you're interested in possibly giving a talk there, you can send an email to simply dale@ghostresearch.org, and I'll get back to you. But if you are looking for a vendor table, which are $75 for the whole day, and you get 2 free admissions to the venue for your vendor table. So basically, it's relatively inexpensive. So you get the two free passes. Or if you are a psychic and want to do psychic readings, we have people doing tarot cards. We have an astrologer. We also have people that are going to be doing spoon bending. We have, I believe, one going to be doing tea leaf readings. So we have a number of different people coming out to do different types of psychic readings. So if you are a psychic reader, or the psychic readers, they can again just contact me through that same email and find out more details about any cost involved for that. The tables are free for psychics, but I do take a small percentage of what they read per day, which I think is fair. And everybody that I brought this up to have thought it was very fair. So again, you can contact me at dale@ghostresearch.org, and you can find out more information about what's called the Midwest Spirit Fest, which is on Eventbrite right now. In fact, the first day when it went live, the very first day we picked up 7 or 8 people that signed up for it. So that's a good showing for the very first day. And as I distribute it to more different venues, it'll be on Instagram here eventually, Twitch perhaps. It's already on Facebook, my timeline. It'll be on my website, and so we have banners made for it on top of that as well, that we've been distributing to people across the internet and asking them to share and get the word out for this event. And so we've gotten a lot of good input so far from that as well. So it looks like this is, like I say, early August, so we got plenty of time to get the word out and get more people involved and coming out. And we have a number of people already that want to be vendors that have already paid for their tables. But we are limited, obviously, about how many tables we can have there. So if you are interested, you need to get a hold of me as soon as you can. And the same thing goes for psychics. We are limited by space. I mean, eventually space will fill up. We are giving people your space basically would be an 8-foot by 4-foot section of the floor. You should bring your own table if at all possible. If you have one, if you don't, we might have some smaller tables that we can that the venue will provide. I will be bringing along a few card tables as well. They got these circular tables that kind of fold down, and they look like they're kind of half circles. So we can actually provide a few of those if that's all you want to do, is maybe do some readings and you only need something to put some business cards or a little flyer about yourself and just have a place for that, I mean, we can provide those. But we're asking people to pretty much, if you can, bring your own tables. But chairs, we have plenty of chairs there. We have seating for well over 150 at present, 150 chairs in the room. So if we have more than that, which would be nice, I mean, we'll find more chairs somewhere. But right now we're looking at about 150 on the main room, and then of course there'll be chairs throughout for the vendors and for the psychics.
Sounds like you got a setup. Now, of course, if you run out of chairs, you got 150. You say running out of chairs is a good problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But
I wish you the best of luck with it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, and right now he told me that's what he could have. But I mean, they might have more. I could possibly bring some chairs myself, but I think 150 is a good start. I mean, we might have what they call SRO, standing room only. I mean, that could always be a possibility. And people are going to be wandering out throughout the whole venue. I mean, they're going to be not just going to be necessarily in with the speakers. They're going to be getting psychic readings. Perhaps they're going to be looking at the vendors. Right. They'll be walking around. So we could have more than 150 people wandering the building. And it's a huge building. Everything pretty much is, as you enter in the back entrance, the parking's right there. We have a big lot in the back. They have a commuter parking lot behind that. They also have street parking, which is free and available right there. You walk right into a level playing field, pretty much. The desk will be right there, but you can sign up and be checked off the list if you pre-order tickets. If you need to pay at the door, you can pay that. Then you can go to whatever psychics that, as you kind of look around, you go through the psychic room and you see somebody that you'd like to have a reading. They'll have their prices posted at the table. We're asking the psychics to go in like $10 increments, perhaps. So I mean, a basic reading might be $10, and then maybe a more thorough reading could be $20, and then you'll pick up the tickets pretty much $10 increments at the main sign-in desk, and just turn those tickets into the psychic, and then you're good to go. And then pretty much your main room is going to be, as soon as you walk in, there'll be the speakers will be right there, and also some of the vendors will be in that same room. Then they'll have two smaller rooms. Well, actually, one smaller room and one much larger room, larger than the smaller room, I should say, but not larger than the speaker's room, for psychic readings. And then downstairs, as soon as you go downstairs, right there is a haunted artesian well entrance, and that's also where the restaurant and the bar. There's also a bar upstairs, right in the where the speaker is going to be speaking. So if you want to get a drink or something, you don't even have to walk downstairs. There's a bar right there. There's washrooms available as well. So everything is very convenient. There's additional washrooms downstairs as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. This is something I wanted to try again. And the last one we did was a few years ago at this Evangelical Spiritualist Church. The first one turned out pretty well. The second one, we just didn't get the information out in far enough in advance. And unfortunately, the turnout was, the advanced ticket sales were terrible. And we just refunded the tickets. So we just kind of, took it on the chin for that one for the second time. That was also a free venue as well. I can always go back there anytime I want as well. I've been told that from it's a spiritualist church, a former funeral home too, by the way. And so, I mean, that was haunted. This building we're in is actually haunted too. So that's kind of nice. We're going to be in a haunted building, and not only have there been events down in the well, but when it was owned by Sharon Birkenfeld, when it was called Widow McCleary's, she had told me several things about what was going on inside this building. In fact, the little so-called cozy bar that we're going to be that's upstairs where the speakers room is one of the hot spots in the building. Actually, it's entirely it looks entirely different today than it did back then, because they opened up a lot of rooms that were at that time, when it was Widow McCleary's, they would just use for storage. Now they're actually open up. They do a lot of weddings, a lot of other events there, different party planning events. But this little cozy bar, she had told me that they have a closed circuit camera right down there. And then, one day, she was in the back, getting ready to open up. She hadn't even put the drawer in the cash register, and the doors were locked to the building. And she just happened to glance up at the monitor, and she saw a gentleman sitting by the bar. And she goes, "Well, that's strange, because there's nobody should be in the building at this time. I hadn't opened the doors, and it wasn't, kind of like a semi-transparent. It looked like a solid figure, like as solid as you or I." So she goes, "Well, let me go out there. It's kind of weird. Like, nobody should have gotten in." And all she had to do was take maybe about 20 steps to get there, and bam, this guy's gone. I mean, there's no place for him to disappear. She searched the building. She called her husband, who was another part of the building. They searched, and they couldn't find anybody. And her husband actually had, and he, by the way, is a motorcycle guy, so he's kind of a biker guy, and he's not a kind of person that that gets scared of anything. He was in there with their son, and his son, came running down and said, "There's a gentleman, standing by the pool table." And again, the building was not yet open. And he said, "What do you mean there's a person upstairs?" He goes, "Yeah, it looks like a dark shadow. I mean, there's nothing I can really see. He's just standing by the pool table." So they go up there, and sure enough, there's a figure still standing up there. That's kind of interesting, because it actually stayed there for considerable length of time, maybe a minute or more. And as he began to walk toward it, it just vanished right in front of his eyes. And you go, "Whoa." So yeah, I mean, there has been quite a number of things that have happened, when it was Widow McCleary's, that have been shut down for a while. I mean, the artesian well has always been someplace that is interesting, because it's a vaulted room. It's like an oval shaped, kind of like a vaulted room, all made of limestone. Okay, limestone is a big conductor, if you will, of paranormal energy. And then you got the running artesian well, which the water runs and flows all the time. So you got the running water connection, you got the limestone connection. And there was a story that actually came out in a local paper that was given to me by the Thornton Historical Society. This is actually in the town of Thornton, which is, I guess you would call this kind of the southeast side of the city. It's right by the Thornton quarries, these very deep quarries that, again, they dig limestone out of. And there was a story that I have a copy of, that was given to me by a lady from the Thornton Historical Society. And I was doing some research and trying to gather some information about, history and hauntings, and who was in charge of the building and so forth. This was actually run by a man at one time named Joe Saltis, and he was a gangster. He was supposedly part of the South Side gang, or at least he knew Al Capone. And usually, people that were on the South Side during the time of Prohibition, I mean, Capone pretty much ran the South Side and tried to take over the North Side, as you remember from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Well, Capone apparently let this guy run this brewery himself, and I guess they got along okay, which is kind of unusual for Capone. I think he had enough money to begin with anyway. But the story goes is that when they were knocking down some walls and doing some remodeling in the building, after it went from being the Bielefeld to the White Bear or something during that time period, allegedly they found a body in the wall. Now, I have the article. It says that it's kind of a question mark type thing. Andy, the current owner, doesn't quite believe that that's a true story, and it's kind of like something I need to do some more research on. But I mean, I did get an article, and it did talk about a possible body in the wall, so that would be another possible haunting. You know, somebody who may have maybe double crossed a mob, and of course somebody put a hit on him, and then he just disappeared off the face of the earth because he was entombed in the wall, and he wasn't discovered until decades and decades later. And nobody seems to have any idea who this person is. All we know is it's a male figure. So there is a lot of activity, that has been attributed to this building in the past, and I see no reason why it still shouldn't be haunted to this very day. We have done investigations in the past in the well when it was Widow McCleary's. We didn't really get too much stuff. We did hear some sounds, no actual EVPs, but some noises when we we just set a camera down there, a night vision camera, and we were monitoring it remotely from inside the restaurant. We strung cables all the way from the artesian well, all the way up the stairs, all the way down through the beer garden and into the outside bar out there. And we were just watching on monitors and listening with headphones, and we're hearing sounds going on. It sounded like, to me, it sounded like footsteps, or the pitter patter of footsteps. There was obviously some drip, some water, the condensation inside the ceiling, but this was quite different from, it wasn't just the drops of water. It sounded like, somebody walking around there. Nothing was visible in the night shot. As you know, night shot cameras can basically see in total darkness pretty much. So we didn't see anything, but we heard something down there. And, then of course, people went down there in the past and they took photographs and they got orbs. Well, you know how I feel about orbs. Obviously there's a lot of things going on down there. I mean, there could be bugs and insects flying around. There could be some dust. There could be water droplets, obviously. So any of that could attribute for the possibility of orbs. So I don't give that much credence. But, the place does have a history of being haunted. So I think that's another interesting little icing on the top of the cake, or a cherry on top of the sundae for those people that are going to be attending this event, that they're going to be actually in a haunted venue as well.
Well, as the old expression goes, food, drinks, ghost,
and spirits.
Count me in. And spirits.
And you can take spirits.
Count me in. I wish I could make it up there, but this is not going to be a good year for me as far as investigation goes, or going anywhere. Gail is still recovering from her back surgery, and she's going to be out of work the entire year.
Wow.
Recovering from that. And we filed for Social Security disability, and you know how that goes very well.
Yeah. Well, I hope she's feeling better.
She is feeling a lot better. I will. She got lucky. She has no hardware in her back. They didn't have to put a screw in there because of her powerlifting past.
I have hardware in my back still. To this day.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
So she avoided that. And about 2-3 weeks ago now, Social Security called her, and she now has a caseworker.
Yeah.
And that at least that's a step in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they are very slow, unfortunately. I had a friend that had a stroke, literally had a stroke, and he was pretty much paralyzed on one side of his body, because if you get it on the right, it paralyzes the left. You get it on the left, it paralyzes the right. It's just the opposite thing. And he had, slurred speech. I mean, the speech got much better. He was able to get through that. He was able to eventually walk around. Bob Davies, a friend of mine, used to live in Champaign, and now he lives out in Arizona, in Prescott, or somewhere out in Arizona, maybe Phoenix. And his arm is still kind of like, he has a problem with his arm. He can't. It's kind of useless. And, it took him a couple of years to get on disability, which I think is absolutely just uncalled for. I mean, the guy had a stroke. I mean, he couldn't work. I mean, he needed that income, and they finally put him on. Now, when I got on Social Security disability, which I'm still on basically, even though I'm retired now, I got that back in 2003. It was much easier to get back on Social Security disability back then than it is today. When I went in there, I had this spinal fusion, which they put hardware in my back, and then my doctor said I couldn't lift anything more than 40 pounds, and he put me on disability. And I was actually working and getting disability at the same time, which you actually could. Now, Social Security completely screwed me around for a little bit. They told me initially that I could work as long as I wanted, as much as I wanted, and still get full disability benefits, which is really nice. But then all of a sudden they told me, well, I got a letter suddenly in the mail that I'd worked too much and I owed $16,000, and they wanted it right now. Right now, they wanted $16,000. So, of course, I went in and I said, well, what's going on? You guys told me that they had this ticket to work program, they called it, which was totally, you could work as long as you wanted. Initially, you were supposed to send them copies of your pay stubs, and then they said they didn't want them anymore, so I stopped sending it to them like they told me. So I appealed, and now get this. Not only did I not have to pay that $16,000 back, they gave me a check for $5,000 right on the spot and said, we underpaid you. So how does that work with Social Security? Crazy.
I don't understand it. I've never talked to anybody who did.
Yeah.
I just know that I got it very quickly down here. They did not want to give it to me in Illinois. And I came down here, got the official address here. We wasn't even properly moved into the house yet. And I got an appointment to apply down here. They did x-rays, and he basically approved me on the spot. And within 6 months, I got a check.
Right. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, I was at that magic age, which is, according to people I've talked to, if you're under 60, they kind of want you to go back to work.
Yeah.
Once you hit 60, they don't expect you to get a job. And I was 60. I was hitting 60 at that time and just got put right through. Gail is also at that magic age. She hit 60 in June.
Right.
So we're hoping that she gets approved, and basically she'll just retire early at 60, get her disability until 62, get her early retirement when she in 2 years when she hits 62, and we can move on. And our bills are such down here that we can actually live with both of us getting Social Security. What we already know we're going to get from Social Security, we can live.
Good.
All bills paid, we can actually live on that amount here.
Great.
Because I may have told you before, I don't remember. Our property taxes here are $200 a year.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
On 4 acres.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, of course, that's good to live. Say, I live on 4 acres. Oh yeah, that sounds really great. Until you put a lawnmower.
$3,000 for my taxes here, and
wow.
I got on disability when I was 50 years old. So I mean that just goes to show you that back in the early 2000s, this was 2003. I would have been actually 51 in the end of the year. It was easier to get back on to get on that in like 2005 or earlier. It was like a snap to get on. After that, they started to tighten everything down here in Illinois, and it made it really, really hard for people to get on. Even people that had legitimate claims to get on, people that had strokes that were completely disabled. And I mean, I could still work, but my doctor said I was disabled. So I was able to get a handicap placard from my car. I mean, I was able to, he pushed us through Social Security. He gave me all the documentations. They never once questioned it, except for the time that they tried to make me pay $16,000 back, and then they gave me a check for $5,000, which I said, it was crazy cool. And they gave me that check. I said, now you sure I can cash this check and you guys ain't going to come after me for it. They go, no, we have figured this out and you're right and we were wrong and we actually underpaid you. So that's cool. So
Yep.
that's a $20,000 swing from 16,000 to 5,000 to the good. So you figure that out. I can't.
It blows my mind. It blows everybody else's mind. So I try not to think about it a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's their game. We just have to play it.
Yeah.
And that's the way Gail and I look at it. We're playing somebody else's game. We got to go by their rules.
Sure. Absolutely.
But as a result, though, I'm not going to be able to get up there for that Paracon. I'd love to get up there for it.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be able to get over to Alabama in September.
Yeah.
That just is way before any kind of expected money, and I just can't do that much unnecessary expense right now.
Yeah. Well, I always said that if we ever get down to your neck of the woods where you can just kind of join us in something local, that we're definitely going to do that. And I didn't know how far away. For those people that obviously we talked a little bit before the show about this place that we're going to be investigating, hopefully in later in September. September, I hope September 17th. Initially, it was going to be in August, and then it got pushed back to Labor Day weekend, and then Labor Day weekend didn't work because it was dove hunting season. So what we're looking at to do probably September 17th is we're going to be heading down to a place called Cloverdale, Alabama. Cloverdale, Alabama is in northern Alabama. It's only about 20 minutes from the town of Florence. So if you're from Alabama, you know where Florence is. It's a pretty big town. And one of my, as many people know, we have a publishing company called the Ghost Research Society Press. And I published a book years ago for a man named Aaron Wyatt Cox. He just goes mostly by Wyatt Cox. He's from Bentonville, South Carolina, initially. Well, actually, he's from Alabama, then he moved to South Carolina. And he wrote the book, The Amazing Cloverdale, Alabama Spooklight Mystery. So there's a big mouthful right there. And he not only wrote this book, one whole book on one spooklight, which I thought was pretty amazing. I wrote a whole book on a number of spooklights, but there was so much material that he was able to write a single book on this and include a number of interesting photographs that he had taken of little streaks of light and things that he saw that he kind of calls earth lights. Now, many years ago, I helped write a book, but I actually contributed, that's the better term, contributed to a book by a British author named Paul Devereaux. His book was called Earthlight's Revelation. And he wanted to know about the Joplin spook light, which we actually did go see here earlier this year in mid-May. And I'll talk about that in a bit. But this spook light here, I have never seen before. So he wrote this book, and it's one of the 19 titles that are in the Ghost Research Society Press, which again you can find if you go to ghostresearch.org. Go to the center and click right on that banner for the Ghost Research Society Press, and you can order books directly from us. And in many cases, you can get autographed copies. If you buy them through Amazon, obviously you won't get an autographed copy. So I have been talking about possibility of going down here, and Wyatt contacted me, and he says that he actually has a cabin in the woods there, which he can give us for free. He knows the owner. It has air conditioning and it has heating during the winter time. It has a running water that has, toilets. It has showers. It had bunk beds and everything. And you just kind of step out of this cabin, and basically you're right there is where this spook light has been seen. So he's going to bring along a scientist that had studied it, and we're going to kind of knock our heads together to figure out what people have been seeing. We're going to be out there for at least 3 nights observing this with night vision cameras, with infrared binoculars, with thermal vision cameras, SLS cameras, full spectrum cameras, scientific equipment, EMF meters, Geiger counters, pretty much you name it, we're going to have out there. And hopefully we'll be able to at least capture some video, because I don't know if he's ever captured video. He may have. I never actually asked him. I'll find out beforehand. Maybe he can have that available for us. But we'll try to set some cameras up that will be able to record video from that distance away. And some of our infrared binoculars, by the way, actually will not only take pictures but record video up to the length of a football field, about 100 yards, 300 feet, which is just totally amazing. So we are planning on going out there, and we'll be observing this light, through the course of 2 or 3 nights when we're out there. And then obviously during the day, since you really can't see the spook light during the day, we're going to travel to some neighboring towns of Florence. There's a small skirmish that took place at a small town. The name escapes me right now. It might come to me, but I've never heard about this particular Civil War skirmish. It wasn't a major battle. It was in northern Alabama, and there's not even really a battlefield that you actually visit. You just kind of have to know by doing some research that this field and this area was a part of a battlefield. There was a railroad that went through the town, so it was actually near this railroad station, and there was obviously people that were killed there. And I'm a big fan of Civil War sites. I've been to Gettysburg umpteen times, and literally almost every major battlefield in the Civil War, except for where it all began, which was Fort Sumter, which I hope to plan to go out there maybe next year. So we're going to be investigating, or at least traveling to some of these places during the daytime. And there are a number right in downtown Florence, right along Main Street. Every town seems to have a Main Street. There are just literally back-to-back locations, restaurants, some churches, some old historic buildings. There's actually, I believe, an ice cream shop and soda shop that's haunted, and they don't hide these things. Basically, a lot of people know about them. So I mean, I'm assuming that once we get there, that they'll be very open and maybe even allow us to do something in the building. Maybe kind of sneak off somewhere and do an EVP session or something like that. And maybe take some pictures and so forth and talk to the owners and maybe do a little interview. So we'll be doing a lot of live Facebooks when we're out there. So people that can't join us, if you are not already part of my Facebook family, you can find me on Facebook. Just look up my name, or actually, as you see it scrolling along the bottom of the screen, we actually have a page for the Ghost Research Society actually on Facebook. You can look that up and just tell them that that Len sent you, or you saw me on the show or something, because I get a lot of obviously requests from people I just simply don't know. But I'll be happy to let you join the Facebook page, and you'll be able to see actually what we do at the time, and hopefully even do some live Facebooks when we're out there at the Spooklight location. So that's one location I'd like to do. I don't know if Len is familiar with this. He probably is. He lives in Arkansas, but I did investigate the very famous Gurdon, Arkansas light in Gurdon, Arkansas a number of years ago with the Arkansas Gazette. And of course, back then, this was going back to like the 1980s. This was kind of younger in my career. I didn't have the equipment I have nowadays. So one of these days, I'm going to get down to, Len's neck of the woods, and then we can do some things. And there's a number of places I've never been to in Arkansas, including the Crescent Hotel, and I believe it's Eureka Springs, and a few other places that I've never been to. There were.
You've never been to Eureka Springs and the Crescent? as close as they are to Pea Ridge. I figured when you were down at Pea Ridge, you stopped by the Crescent.
I don't think I ever was at Pea Ridge. I don't believe. I mean, I'll have to look it up to see, but I don't believe Pea Ridge was a place I investigated. I mean, we went to a number of places. We went to other Civil War sites like Wilson's Creek, but that was in Missouri. There were, I mean, obviously, Alabama. I went to Shiloh. That's in Alabama.
Right.
I went into, I've never actually, I don't think I've even been to Vicksburg, to tell you the truth. I can't remember. I'd have to look. I've been to so many different locations that I can't remember sometimes what I've been to or I haven't been to. I have to literally go through my compendium of places I've been to and kind of look it up. But yeah, I mean, when I was in Arkansas, I went to Hot Springs. I went to this, I think it's called Diamond Craters or something park,
Yes.
where you can actually dig for your own diamonds and stuff.
Yes.
I thought that was kind of cool, but I never found anything, unfortunately. But they said, if you found something that you weren't quite sure, show it to us and we can tell you what it is. But of course, I never dug up any diamonds, but that was kind of neat. And then of course we went there to see the Garden Light in Gordon, Arkansas, and that was pretty cool. Just walking down this trestle, down this train track, and you go to the third trestle, which kind of goes over this like water. And they were out there with some walkie-talkies and flashlights, and I had a 35 millimeter camera. I had no night shot. I had nothing. This is 1984. Remember, night shot didn't come out until like 1990s, like 96, 97. So I really had nothing. And even if I had a video camera, it would have been just a black screen. You would have saw nothing. But I actually did capture on time-lapse photography by just holding the shutter open for about a minute. I actually, later when I had that film developed, I actually picked up streaks and light images down there that we didn't see nakedly with the naked eye. But I was using very, very high-speed film at the time, like a 400 speed film. And so this might have been something that was so dim that we didn't capture it, but by holding the shutter open, it allowed more light to gather into the film, and then it showed up on the film. Now, the people from the Arkansas Gazette, they were loads of fun to be with. And I had a nice article that came out of there that shows a very young Dale Kaczmarek with a full head of black hair holding a picture of the Joplin spook light in a nice article. But they kind of tried to spook me a little bit. So as I'm walking ahead of them, they're walking behind me, and they're throwing rocks into the pond and down the tracks. And I'm looking around. What was that? What was that? All right, guys, knock it off, But they were all good-hearted about it. So besides those couple places, I mean, I don't think I've ever been to Pea Ridge. I've never been to the Eureka Springs hotel, which I heard is extremely haunted.
Yes, it is. You've also got another hotel there in Eureka Springs that's also very haunted.
I'm sorry?
You've also got in Eureka Springs, there is another hotel there that's just as old as the Crescent that's also very haunted. And Pea Ridge, which is right on the border of Missouri and Arkansas, the Crescent Hotel up there is also very close to there on the border.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, those are up in way northwest Arkansas, quite a ways from where I am. And of course, you got the Allen House here, which is south of here, about 30 miles from south of where I live. That has been on 3 or 4 of the paranormal TV shows.
Excellent.
She has there's a very interesting story there. You have to look it up. I could go to 2:00 in the morning talking about Liddell Allen and the mess she got into and the unmailed love letters. And some of them had been mailed to her from her lover. She committed suicide because her lover was married and he was supposed to show up on Christmas and he didn't. And instead, a letter showed up that he not only could not show up for Christmas, but he could no longer see her because his wife had found out about them and was threatening divorce. And he had promised before to leave his wife. He did not. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And she took some poison and died a couple of days later.
Mm.
It's a really kind of a sad story. Uh, but she's an interesting character. Her son, Alan, went to New York. He got a good job in New York in the press, I believe. And he died at 23, 24 years old.
Oh, sad.
Yes, he's a personality. Liddell, you get about 2 or 3 tours of people coming through there on Halloween, and she's tired. She's not going to make an appearance. She's not going to say anything. Alan, which is not his real name, he was named a junior from her husband, and they got kind of a messy divorce, and neither one of them wanted him to have that junior name, so they just called him Alan because that was her maiden name.
Right.
So that's what they called him, just kind of get away from her husband's name. Anyway, he loves the tours. He loves people, and he will interact as long as people are coming through. He's not one of these ghosts that comes in there and maybe says a couple of words over a ghost box and fades away.
Yeah.
He likes to entertain, and he'll go half the night, pull in a little stunt. He may try to scare you. You can pick up a little laughter once in a while. I think I've told you, but I'll repeat the story. I was in there on Echovox, and a tour came through, and I noticed one guy was wearing, kind of hanging in the back, a little nervous, wearing a baseball cap. I said, Alan, give me or shout out the name of the gentleman wearing the baseball cap that just walked in the room. I'd never seen this man before. In fact, I only seen him just a few seconds walking in. I said, let's do this. Alan immediately over the Echovox named his name.
Good.
And you can imagine the panic of a guy that's already nervous on Halloween. This was on Halloween a couple of years ago. He was gone.
Yeah.
He literally ran out of the tour, out of the room, out of the house. He was done. He had plenty of the Allen house on Halloween night. But
yeah, that happens a lot of times to people that are not used to doing what we do. Very, very, very fast story. We were at Trans-Allegheny one year, and we were going on. These were public tours, so we had like 60 people, but we were 4 floors, so we broke them up to about 15, 12 to 15 people, a very small group. And as we're walking through, I'm videotaping, the guide talking and so forth. And we actually heard and recorded 9 disembodied screams coming down the hallway. And this couple that was on there, they were there as thrill seekers. Okay, this was their honeymoon. So weird place to take your bride for a honeymoon, right? And this was pretty cold out. This was like in February. We were all bundled up. And it's on my website. If people want to check it out, it's one of 9 different screams. I think I picked the top 3 or 4 that were really, really loud. And you hear this scream coming down the hallway, and you see this guy turn back to the camera and goes, "What was that?" And you see his eyes just like, "What was that?" So yeah, I mean, sometimes you get people like that are not prepared for something that happened.
No.
And they do get freaked out, and that's why I always tell people that when you're joining my group, you join it. You start off with a year, and then maybe after a year you decide, well, is this something you want to pursue further, or maybe you've had enough. I mean, I had a friend that was brand new to us. Again, a very short story, but very new to us when we went to Gettysburg one year. And she was a friend of she was a girlfriend of one of the other members, Sandy Weber. Now, I won't mention her name in case she tunes in or something. I don't want to embarrass her or anything. But we were doing an investigation just down, if you've ever been to Gettysburg or even know Gettysburg, close to Devil's Den. And right down Devil's Den, the hill, there's a place called the Triangular Field. was they've had a lot of interesting activity. They've seen phantom regiments marching. They've seen strange lights in the woods that actually look like a volley of musket going off. And then you probably saw that very famous video of those figures kind of combing through the trees and kind of drifting through the trees, taken by the Underwoods. An amazing video, and I do not think it's doctored. I do not think there's a natural explanation for it. And so we were right by the stone wall at dark. Now you can't do it anymore because I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyway, we were out there and we were using a, I believe it was a ghost box at the time. And we were using, I think it might have been an SB7 or an SB11, probably an SB7. And it was scanning as quickly as I can make it scan, so I don't slow it down, because when you slow it down, you get radio bleed through. So it was the fastest scan I could, and I was scanning AM, because there's less AM stations normally than there are FM stations. So there's less chance that you're going to pick up some radio chatter. And then I simply asked, was anybody injured here or something to that effect? And a voice comes through and says, yeah. Right away, an instant, yeah. And I said, well, where were you shot? And before I could even basically finish that, it says, in the eye. And this new girl, you hear her in the background go, oh. And she got freaked out. She got so freaked out that evening that she went back to the hotel, and she didn't come out of the hotel room the entire time we were there. And actually drove her girlfriend's husband kind of crazy, because she wanted to go back home. She goes, just take me home. And he goes, we're not leaving. We're out here with the GRS and we're doing investigations out here. So she not only didn't want to participate anymore because it so freaked her out, but then when she got back to Chicago on the north side, she quit the group, immediately quit the group, and didn't want to be a part of it. So sometimes people, they don't know what they're getting into. And I try to tell them, when I interview people, what I do now sometimes is I'll do a Zoom session, which is real easy for me. And we do a lot of Zoom meetings with people that can't show up, or maybe they're a little bit still leery about some of the pandemic stuff, which kind of springs back and forth. It's good and it's bad. It's good and bad. So I'll do a Zoom interview, and I'll try to tell people, this is what you should possibly, expect. I mean, first of all, expect the unexpected, because you might be in a place that suddenly you might see a full-bodied apparition, or you might see a shadow person running down the hallway, or you might be touched by something, or you might get a really strange EVP, or hear a disembodied voice. And how are you going to react to that? Some people say, oh, I like it. But then when it gets right down to the nitty-gritty, when you hear that, they go, oh, my God, it's so scary, So, and some people, I've only had maybe a couple people that have actually quit because they've had experiences with my group. So I think the vast majority of them, either after their first year, decided, well, maybe this wasn't exactly what I thought it was, or maybe I can't devote the time I want to it, so I'll quit. But it's like they got so scared that they had to leave the group. I've had a couple people that have happened that too. But I would like to kind of mention here quickly. I mean, when we were doing an investigation here with my friend Paul Adams. Now, Paul Adams is my correspondent and my English correspondent from the UK. He's a member of our group from Luton, which is just north of London by about 20 miles. And he actually came out to the United States for this very first visit on May 16th, and he was to the end of May, and he spent 2 weeks at my house. I said, well, don't get a hotel. I got 2 spare bedrooms upstairs, and I got a queen size bed, a color TV, all the comforts of home, and you got all your privacy. And so he stayed here, and I just took him all over. He wanted to see the Joplin spook light, which is another spook light that I had investigated multiple times. But unfortunately, the last couple of times I went out to Joplin, I didn't see anything. And it's kind of troublesome because I'm wondering if the light simply stopped showing up. Sometimes, even in just paranormal instances, where you have, say, a visual apparition, or you might have something that's been seen on a regular basis or a fairly regular basis, suddenly just something simply stops. It's like it goes into a state of dormancy, where it takes the spirit a long time to develop that energies necessary to be seen as a visual apparition, or in some cases a spook light. And I wonder if that's the reason, because when we were there for a whole evening. I mean, we got there before the sun went down, and we stayed out really late, and the thing did not show up at all. And I was disappointed, because this was the second or possibly even the third time we had been out there that it did not show up. But my friend said, he said, I was just thrilled to be at the site where this had been seen, because there had been a number of strange things that had happened there in the past to us, including, and again, you can go to the Ghost Research Society website, and you can actually look up the Joplin spook light and see some video that I actually shot on Labor Day weekend, which is pretty amazing, and some very fascinating photographs of it, full color photographs of this spook light down the road, with other cars parked along the side of the road that were watching this spook light as well at the same time. And I actually got some a video of the gentleman that used to run the Spook Light Museum. His name was Garland Middleton. They used to call him Spooky Middleton. And he would, his little cabin that had Spook Light Museum on it, and they had newspaper clippings. He was subject to so many different interviews. He was on the TV show Real People that was on back, I think, in the 1980s. He would tell people, I got binoculars for 10 cents. I'll give you, you can use the binoculars and peek down the road and so forth. And, the soda pop was a quarter, the smaller little bottles of soda pop. I mean, he wasn't out there to make money. He was out there to entertain and to relate sightings that he had seen in the past. And there were so many things that we had seen out there and we had experienced. Unfortunately, some of the stuff we experienced, we couldn't get photographs or video of, because the topography of the area is such that, when you try to get the camera, lined up right between the hills, the trees, and by the time you get it lined up, the thing's gone. And then you have to wait for it to show up again. And we were doing that all one night, until we saw this triangular shaped object that had a hollow center that you could actually see trees and bushes through. And it wasn't even on the road. It was off the road near a barn. And it was so bright, I thought the barn was on fire. And we were looking at this, three of us with high-powered binoculars, 10 by 50s. And we saw it. And I go, wow, that's strange. It's not even a ball. It's a diamond-shaped, not triangular, diamond-shaped, actually, that had like a hollow center. And the hollow center, you could see trees, bushes, barns through it. It was weird. The weirdest thing I ever saw. And when I saw that, I immediately turned to my people that were watching it, and I didn't say, well, this is what I saw. I said, what are you seeing? They told me the same thing. So I knew it was, I wasn't putting thoughts in their mind. And we watched this object or whatever it was kind of go down behind the hill, because it's like one hill after another going down the road. Okay. It went down behind the hill slowly. And when it got below the visible horizon, it left behind little twinkling phosphorescent flickers of light, like it had left something of itself behind. And it twinkled for a few, maybe about, 20, 30 seconds, and then it stopped twinkling. These were not fireflies, by the way. I mean, we were looking at it through high-powered binoculars. These were twinkling lights, okay? So, wow, that's very strange. So, but we were the only one on the road that evening. This was like 2:30 in the morning. So we started creeping up the hill. And before we got to the top of that hill, we're at the bottom of the hill, kind of going up. Suddenly, this light comes right up in front of us, behind the hill, probably no further than 50 feet away. That's the closest I've ever been. It just sat there. Again, triangular-shaped object, diamond-shaped. I keep saying triangular. Diamond-shaped object, hollow center, stand there. Just was standing there. We stopped immediately. We didn't have our lights on in the car because there was nobody else on this very, 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 very rural road. Somewhere just over the border in Oklahoma, actually. Went down behind the hill, left behind that twinkling effect again. After it stopped twinkling, we got to the top of the hill maybe 20 seconds later. This light was about a mile down the road. It had gotten from point A to point B just like that, and it was disappeared. So I don't know what this is, but I will tell you, when I explained what I had seen to a professional psychic that I worked with at the time, Pat Schenberg, who was the past president of the Illinois Society for Psychic Research, she told me that she felt that we could have been in extreme danger, that this could have been simply a portal, a mobile portal. And heaven forbid if we would have stepped through that portal and then it disappeared. I mean, we might have ended up in a parallel dimension of some kind. And it makes sense now that I think about it. It also is in that same area where I picked up what I call kind of a zone of fear, a very small little area. It was like in between two hills. So there was the top of the hill, then it went down and went back up. And in this little hollow area, I call it a hollow, it was the creepiest sensation. You would walk into this area and you would get an instant anxiety attack, a panic attack, kind of a fight or flight type of scenario. And it just came over me to the point, and I'm actually getting goosebumps talking about this because I remember this so vividly. I took a few steps back and I'm fine. I take a few steps forward again, immediately it hit me again. Now, I only know of one other such, and there are probably a whole ton of others, but I only know for sure of one other such location that a very well-respected researcher and investigator had an exact similar thing.
Oops. Looks like we froze. Dale froze. Oh, I'm not frozen. I'm just see if that unfreezes. We'll give it a minute. You may have to reset. In the meantime, since it is halftime, we are going to do a little advertising here. DNA Paranormal is a haunted evening, and this is at there we go at the Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, September 24th. Yeah, I'd recommend you go there if you are going to be in that Alton area or if you live in that area. To go there to this haunted meetup, it's a good deal for the price. So I definitely say go if you can. Tickets are cheap. That's definitely a haunted area. Go there. Another one is the Holiday Inn, San Jose, California. This is going to be, I forget when this is going to be. I can't read it. Not wearing my glasses, so I'm blind. But if you're in San Jose, California, at the time this is going to be, I would, back in October 1st, I would say go to this too. If you got a haunted event in your area, I highly recommend these areas to go to. Now, if you want to go to NonCom 7, go there. If you are in this area, go to this event. It's a 2-day event. This is a little bit more of a scary event. It's very haunted elementary school. So, like I said, go there if you can. And specifically go to the DNA Paranormal Haunted Evening, Mineral Springs Hotel, September 24th, 7 to 2. You get quite a bit for your money there. Door prizes, raffles, tickets to $30. All right. I think we're back.
Sorry about that. I'm on my cell phone right now. I was on my desktop and I got a blue screen. It just dumped me completely.
Okay.
Blue screen is not the best thing to obviously get on your computer. So
Uh,
I've had that a couple of
yeah.
times before. But anyway, I was talking about this zone of fear that we picked up over there at the Joplin Spooklight area in the past. And I know of only one other such person that had an experience. His name was John Keel, who wrote the Mothman prophecies. He had went out to the TNT factory out in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and he had a very similar thing happen to him, where he basically just was driving down this road and got out of the car, and he stepped into what he called a zone of fear that literally rose the hair on his arms and his necks, and got his anxiety attack. And he said there was no high tension wires. There was nothing nearby that could explain that. And just like me, he stepped back a few feet. He felt fine. He went forward a few feet. He was engulfed, literally engulfed by this. He said he could not figure out what was causing it. He actually came back the very next day. He kind of remembered the area where he was at, and that he could look at the landmarks and so forth, and the landmarks were the same. And he said when he came back the next day, it was gone. It wasn't there anymore. And I've been back to the same thing with the Joplin Spooklight area, and I've been back there several times since, and I've never felt that before. So that is very, very weird, and I don't know what causes it. I mean, I didn't have when I felt that initially, I didn't have the type of equipment I have today. So I didn't have a good EMF detector or anything like that might have been able to pick up any type of strange EMF signals or something that might explain that. So I really have no idea what it was. I've tried to go back here every time I've been to the Joplin Spooklight. I went there to try to determine what it was, and it never showed up since that time. In fact, I know exactly where I saw that diamond-shaped object, and we've been out there and we scoured that area, sat out there and looked, and nothing ever showed up similar to that. So, these may be what we call transient things that simply just show up on occasion. They may be portals. They may be interdimensional doorways. They may be zones of fear. They may be, the best way I can determine it, when I put together a presentation called Portal Hauntings the last couple of years. And obviously the Joplin Spooklight area is what I could call a portal haunting, because not only do they have the spooklight that's been seen out there, there have been reports of possibly UFO activity. There's been apparitional sightings. There's been, strange atmospheric and other type of anomalies that people actually can feel, sense, see on the road. So it's a really strange area. It's a my computer's finally coming back on after being shut down. But anyway, I guess we can, if it's still okay, we can just stick with that. I mean, I won't get dumped on here as long as I'm coming through okay on here. But I mean, when we were there, I mean, the closest we got to you, I think, Len, is we went to the tri-state marker. And the tri-state marker, you can actually straddle 3 states: Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And so it's what they call the tri-state marker. It's down near Southwest City, Missouri. We were actually in Arkansas, but we were right on the border, right there, that tri-state marker. And
you were very close to Pea Ridge then, because Pea Ridge is
really?
right. We're very close to there. And Eureka Springs is just to the east of there.
Okay.
It's not because Eureka Springs is not very far south of the Missouri line. It's just east, a little bit east from Oklahoma. And right there in that very close to the corner you're describing is where the Pea Ridge battlefield is.
Really?
They're
Okay.
very, very close. If you look on the map, very close to Branson, Missouri.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was in Branson, Missouri years ago. I went through Silver Dollar City.
Mhm.
I actually went to a small town called Noel, like the first Noel, spelled the same. There was a place out there called Ginger Blue. It was a restaurant, and actually a restaurant slash bar. And they actually had about, I think, 4 rooms that you stay the night. And I was coming through there, and I go, well, this is kind of nice. There's a nice lake over here. I wasn't a fishing guy, but I just want to, get something to eat and maybe just, turn in for the night. And I mean, it was a little bit loud until the bar finally let out because the walls were kind of paper thin. And nice place. I went back home and I go, well, darn it! I just figured out the place I was at was haunted. I didn't even know it. I didn't know it was haunted until I got back home. And we were going to go back there for years, and we never did. And then I found out later the place burned to the ground. Now they
Wow.
built a new one, supposedly a new one, because when we were out there in May, we were out there on May 16th, and we found the location. But I'm thinking, I said, it doesn't look at all like the original. And I go, well, where's the lake? The lake's not even there anymore. And I said, what did they fill in the lake? The lake dry up or what? I'm not quite sure. So we couldn't really. I mean, it did say the Ginger Blue Inn Resort. So I said it's got to be at the same place. But it, you know, is it still haunted? Well, it probably is. I mean, just because the fire, burnt the first one down doesn't mean that the building, the area is still not haunted. It could be the area is haunted, not necessarily the building.
The land can be haunted itself,
Yeah,
not so much the building. And if the
absolutely.
building burned down, any spirits that were attached to the building may still be right there.
Absolutely.
New places built, you have an instant haunted location.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, we just kind of drove past there and we took some pictures. We went over to the a cemetery that used to be called Evergreen Cemetery. Now it's called Southwest City, Missouri Cemetery. I think it's one of the pictures that you put on the advertisement that you put up for me on Facebook, me standing next to that marker that said Southwest City, Missouri Cemetery. And yeah, that's the one right there with me kind of kneeling down next to it. And we actually went there because I had taken a very strange, unusual photograph back in the 1980s when I was there. I had been at Joplin, Missouri, and I was investigating that when I heard reports of some people telling me that there was a semi-transparent figure of a woman seen walking through that cemetery on a nightly basis. And I go, well, that's kind of strange because, obviously if it's seen on a nightly basis, it probably has some sort of natural explanation to it because, apparitions don't normally show up every single night. It's just, unless, I mean, I've never heard of anything like that in my travels. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not practical or likely. So I went there and couldn't find anybody to talk to. But I, just kind of wandered the cemetery, and I had a, 35 millimeter camera, and I had color infrared film that I was using at the time. And I had a lot of success. On my website, you can see a lot of examples of infrared film that show shadow figures that I didn't see at the time. Some taken at Hull House, some taken at, Woodlawn Cemetery, and a few other locations of, they were taken. Even the Judy Huff photograph taken at Bachelor's Grove was taken with black and white infrared film too. So a lot of good examples of that. So I just went around and just started snapping pictures, not knowing exactly where this figure was supposedly seen. And of course, I didn't know I got anything until I went home and developed the film. It's the difference between 35 millimeter and digital. Digital, you get that instant picture. So when I went home and I had the film developed, There is a really strange bluish haze all over where I supposedly saw this. Now, when I didn't see no blue haze. What I actually saw was a kind of like a collection of a cloudy, misty kind of forming near this tree. You know, some parts were dense, other parts you could see through. They were translucent, and it seemed to be moving around kind of rapidly around the tree. And I said, well, first of all, it's not foggy out. It's during the day. It wasn't early dew, so it wasn't like fog or ground fog or ground mist. I didn't smoke at the time or anything like that. So I couldn't figure out what I was seeing. So I said, well, I should at least snap a couple pictures, to see if I can, capture that thing. And, most times when people take, photographs, I'm not an expert on photography. I don't think there are any experts, in the field. But I've shot a lot of different photographs and a lot of different cameras, and I know how infrared photography works. And for the most part, when people, when they snap an image, they don't see the image until they develop the film because of the way the camera freezes a moment, time, and space. But this case, I saw something visual with my naked eye, and when I got the film back, it wasn't on the film. So I thought that was really unusual. But that entire area was kind of bathed in an eerie blue light, which is very uncharacteristic for the film. Now, this ground fog, when I saw it, after I snapped the picture, took the camera away from my eye, it was still there for a few moments. Then it disappeared in a most unusual fashion. And I was the only one there. So, I mean, it's my word against the world. But basically, this is what I saw. I saw this mist, literally like if you were to pull the cork out of a bathtub, it just kind of spiraled down into the ground and it was gone. And I'm going, like, what the heck did I just see? And like I say, when I looked at that film later, that whole area by the tree was kind of bluish, kind of a bluish haze to it. When we went back there on May 16th, after we had been to Joplin, we were going to, like I said, Ginger Blue. We tried to find Ginger Blue. We went to the Tri-State Marker, and in between we went to the which now it's called Southwest City Cemetery. We went there. We actually found that tree, that exact location where I had taken that picture. And I mapped it. I took pictures all over. We did some EVP, which I unfortunately haven't had a chance to go through yet. It's just been so busy. I'll eventually get around to it. But when we compared the photographs that I had taken that day when we were there to the ones that I took back in '84, it's absolutely the same exact tree, the same spot. And, I didn't, I was just taking with an ordinary digital camera and my cell phone. So nothing showed up. There was some, when we were using the Phasma box, I remember there was some communication coming through the Phasma box, which, by the way, for those people that might not know what a Phasma box is basically, it's an application that you can download from extremesenses.com for like $14.95, and it actually you can only download it on a tablet or a laptop. You cannot use it on your phone. It has to be a Windows-based system of some kind. And what it is, it uses internet radio and sound banks, kind of mixed with a reverb and echo effect. And what it does is that you can ask questions, and in some cases you'll get responses that come through. Now it's really kind of strange, and it has a weird reverb and echo, but and a lot of random stuff comes through. But we have gotten a lot of good communications using the Phasma box, and that's one of our favorite pieces. And we did use that there. We just haven't had a chance to go through that. We also went to Wilson's Creek Battlefield, which I had been to before. But again, when I was there the first time, we didn't have the equipment we do have now. And as soon as we sat down, and before we even asked a question, we turned the Phasma box on, and it says something to the effect of they were killed. right at the very beginning, and I didn't even ask a question. I'm going, well, here we are on a battlefield where we know people were killed, and this area we were sitting at was a back and forth throughout that afternoon. And first thing it said, they were killed, or something to that effect. And I remember hearing that come through, and the other people that were with me clearly heard that. Both Paul and Chuck heard that come through there, and they immediately said that, because we actually have a video of it as well, and I think we also did a live Facebook from there too. So we have, like, backups that actually show that we knew what was being said at the time, even though we didn't even ask the question. So yeah, we did a lot of things when Paul was here, but one of our most recent investigations we did was a very unusual one in Sharon, Wisconsin, at a place called the Valley of the Kings Tiger Sanctuary, which is just as it sounds. It's a sanctuary for exotic animals: tigers, lions, emus, grizzly bears, black bears, wolves. You name it. There was a whole bunch of stuff there, and some were, there was some that were blind. There were some that they could not be released back to the wild, and they were very well taken care of, very well fed. And we were brought in there because there was two people that were mauled by a white tiger. You might have remembered way back when they used to have Siegfried and Roy, and they used to have those white tigers, and I think Roy was actually killed by one of them. Because even though they get along and they tolerate us, they're still wild animals. And this guy had went into this trailer. It's actually a semi-trailer, tractor trailer, where they had set up where this tiger was living, and they went in to feed it, and it just turned and it just grabbed this guy's neck, bit down, and killed him. And the woman went in there to try to figure out how to get the body out of there. And she went in there, and she went in with some food, thinking that she could distract the tiger with the food. And the tiger did the same thing, grabbed her by the neck, picked her up, slammed her against the side of the trailer, and killed her. So there were bodies laying inside there, and they had to call a SWAT team, and the SWAT team had to kill the tiger to get the bodies out of there. So that was one of the areas that we were doing some EVP work right there, and we were using the Phasma box there as well. The interesting thing about that is the very first word that came through. Again, we turned the box on. We hadn't even asked the question yet, and the first word that came through was tiger. And I thought that was just amazing. Of all the possible words in the English language that could have came through, the first word was tiger. And then later on, we had words that said killed and stuff like that. And all stuff, words that were relevant to the scenario of what happened there. And I want to do some more research on it. And the woman that runs the place, her name is Jill Carnegie. She's actually related to the Carnegie family. And this is not open to the public. You have to be a member to go in there. And they do allow memberships to go through there, and you can actually help to feed. I wish we could have been there when they were feeding those wild animals. That would have been neat to see. But they tell you, don't stick your fingers through the cage because they're still wild animals. But there were some that you could do. There was donkeys, and there were horses, and there were other things that they weren't so wild. But there was this one tiger that had a kind of a bum leg and was absolutely beautiful. And I'll be posting some of those images here the next couple of days on my Facebook feed. So watch for them. Anybody who's on Facebook, a friend of mine, watch for those. I was able to get, normally when you go to the zoo, the closest you can get to a wild animal like that is 30, 40, 50 feet sometimes, because they're in a moat, they're in a cage. I was able to get literally about that far. Let's see, about that far away from them. There you go, about that far away from them. literally
Wow.
about 3 inches away. And all there was like a cyclone fence between me, a very reinforced cyclone fence. And he came right up to me, and he was making little sounds I never heard a tiger make before. Kind of like he wasn't like, but he was kind of making like almost like a sneezing sound, like something like that. And I said, well, what is he doing? And she goes, well, he's talking to you. He likes you. I said, well, that's cool. So I did it back to him, and he just sat there and he looked at me, and he was like eyeball to eyeball. And I mean, when he kind of turned his head, I kind of put my finger, just momentarily put my finger there and scratched it. He loved it. I mean, he liked it, but I didn't want to push it too much. But to get that close to a wild animal, and they had tigers, they had lions, they had wolves, they had bears, grizzlies, black bears, ducks, geese, emus, goats, lambs, you name it. They had a whole bunch of things. They had bobcats, they had lynx, they had like almost like, I don't think it was a jaguar. I think it was more like a bobcat than a lynx. And they were all native to the area, because you can get bobcats and lynxes up in Wisconsin, and they're up in that area. And again, they were just because they were caught, because they were injured, and now they're being taken care of, and they can't be released back in. So they're fed, and they're very well taken care of. And when you go through the sanctuary, I mean, you go through a zoo normally, you might smell things that maybe are not so pleasant. It could be,
Right.
yeah. I won't go into details. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when you go
Well.
when you go through this place, you don't smell any of that. Literally, I mean, it is such a, you don't smell anything, odors coming from the cages or the animals. I mean, they're so well taken care of. I mean, it's just like being in the outdoors and you're breathing in fresh air. And so I haven't had a chance to go through those audios yet, but we actually had a laser grid set up with a night vision camera. We had an EM. Now this was interesting. We had a REM pod set up, and I think you know how a REM pod works. Basically,
Yes.
there's a project. There you have a telescopic probe that produces a field of energy. If something breaks that, the lights go off, the sound goes off, and we had that in front of us. And that thing started to go off, and it was nothing was close to it. My cell phone was way far away, so I know as I got my cell phone close, it would create an energy that it was far enough away, and I backed it up far enough away. It wasn't close to anybody, and it started to go off. And then when I had Jill come over, I said, "Well, since we're actually sitting in the tractor trailer on the spot." On the exact spot where these two people were killed, I said, Jill, why don't you come over, because you knew both of these people when they were alive. Why don't you start asking questions, because they would be more familiar with you than, say, a bunch of strangers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was an excellent idea.
So she comes over and she starts calling them by their name. I'm not going to, put that on the air, but I don't know if she wants us to use that. I'll have to clear that from her. But she starts calling them by their first name, and she says, "Can you let me know that you're here?" And then the REM pod starts going off. Every time she calls their name out, the REM pod's going off. And I'm recording this on a live feed on Facebook. So if people haven't seen that, they can go to my Facebook page and just check out the videos from the past, or go into my timeline and go back. This was, not that long ago. This was in late July. When was it here? I'm trying to look here now. I was on July 30th, so it was just about a week ago, really, that we were out there. So it's easy to find if you go to Facebook, my Facebook page there, and just kind of scroll down through there. It might also be on my Ghost Research Society page, so you can actually watch that video and that live Facebook feed there and see what we did. And it's very interesting. And like I said, I'll be posting more pictures of that. So that was a very interesting trip. that we did. And then, of course, this trip that we're planning to do, hopefully on September 17th, to go back to go to this spooklight place in Alabama. It's going to be pretty interesting. But as I mentioned, I got on August 13th, just to give you a couple of things I'm doing. I'll be at the Hannah House in Indianapolis, and then hopefully we'll do some sort of investigation afterwards. We always try to set something up after that meet and greet, which runs from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's a free meet and greet. You can go to just search for it on Facebook, Hannah House meet and greet or something, and they bring your own table set up, and it's free. And they got dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of vendors out there and people that you can talk to. It's a great event. It's all day outdoors. The very next weekend, I'll be doing a conference at Haunted Rockford in Rockford, Illinois, from 11 till 5. And then afterwards, we're going to do a fundraising event at Tinker Swiss Cottage, which is very haunted. We're going to be doing an investigation then on August 22nd, which is a Monday, out at the Ogden Dunes in Indiana, with Chuck and several people from the group and people that were there before from like 7 to 11. We got special permission to be out there after dark on the dunes to try to locate and communicate with the so-called Diana of the dunes, the girl that's been seen out there on many occasions, and she's supposed to be a ghost. And then the 17th of September, and there's a couple of things that I may have before that, like Labor Day weekend. I'm going to be planning something, and maybe the 10th. But the 17th is hopefully we'll be doing that thing out in Alabama. Then I'll be going on the 22nd, 23rd, 23rd, 24th, 25th to that non-con 7 at Polstown Elementary School. So I will be there. So if anybody is planning on going to that event, they can check out me. I'll be out there with my table. I'll be happy to chat with people and so forth.
That was the non-com 7?
Non-con 7, yeah.
Didn't I throw up a banner for that a while ago?
Yes, you sure did.
This right here.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I thought that said 9 myself, but it's actually a 7. Yeah.
So you're going to be there.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to be there, and Keith H is going to be there, and then another number of groups and organizations will be there. I'll be there for the whole 2.5 days. It'll be interesting. Then of course my conference is on October the 16th. I do have other things going on for the public. I'm going to have a ghost tour on October 11th for a group called Phil and Amy Tours. I've done them before. I also will be speaking at the Orland Park Library on October 28th at 7 p.m., which is in Illinois, obviously. I'll be talking about the topic they wanted me to talk about is my presentation called The Haunted Midwest. So I'll be talking about that there. It's an hour presentation. It's free. Just call the Orland Park Library and see if you have to reserve a seat, because seating is limited, obviously, for these events. I'm also just recently been contacted to do a ghost tour on November the 1st for the Chicagoland, South Chicagoland Visitors Bureau, Convention and Visitors Bureau for this area, and this may be they'll be having their own bus, so you can find out by going to the Chicago Southland Visitors and Convention Bureau. That's how you say it. And I'll be contacting them and getting back to them to finalize that. And then on November the 6th, Willie Atkins, local investigator, is going to be having a conference called the Afterlife Paranormal Conference starting at 11 o'clock on November the 6th. The day before that, he's going to have Historic Crimes Convention So I'll be at both of those for Saturday and Sunday, but I'll be talking at his conference on Sunday. And just backtrack a little bit for that one on the Haunted Rockford convention in August 20th. I'll be debuting a brand new presentation that I'm doing, a brand new PowerPoint presentation called on EVP. And it's going to have some really crazy EVPs as well as actual videotape from some of the very early pioneers in the field, George Meek, Dr. Konstantin Radove, Sarah Estep, Friedrich Jorgensen. I actually have a video of him talking in German. There's no subtitles, unfortunately, but we're not so interested in what he's saying, but when he pushes the recorder and you listen to the spirit voices coming through, and you'll be able to actually see and hear that. And I think that was something I found on the internet, which I found was just utterly amazing when I was able to find that. So that's what I have going on right now. But of course, I'm going to get busier as the October approaches and my weekends kind of go by the wayside. I'm trying to plan a few more things for our group, including possibly doing a road trip in the 15-passenger van I have, of just piling a bunch of people in there and taking them up to the north side, to some places like White Cemetery in Barrington, also near Gurney. There's a very famous place called The Gate. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Len, but supposedly the story is that there used to be some sort of school for children or orphanage of some kind, and some crazed idiot escaped or went crazy in there and killed a bunch of kids and severed their heads and then placed their heads on spikes and on the outside of the fence, and they sat there for a while. Well, obviously it's not a true story. I mean, I've researched it. If that's something like that would have been true, it would have been in all the local papers, and I haven't found anything.
Yes.
So, but I mean, the area is still crazy. I mean, there is some people believe that it's haunted. So we're going to go up in that area and see this foundations of the houses out there, the filled-in swimming pool that you can still see, and so forth. We're going to be going up there with hopefully a local expert to show us around. That he's very familiar with the area. And another place called Rainbow Road, which is supposed to be very haunted as well. It's kind of since the stories came out, it has changed quite dramatically and been more residential. So, I mean, it's hard to find exactly where some of these locations were because the roads have changed and so forth. But there was a report years ago, and this is probably decades ago actually now, of a house that used to be along Rainbow Road. And again, this local expert, I'm trying to think of his name right offhand, it escapes me, but trying to get him to come along because he actually did some very early video out there, and I don't know if you would call it live Facebook, because I believe even before live Facebook, but actually some YouTube videos, I guess you'd call it, where he was out there and he said that there was a house out there years ago that apparently had burned to the ground, and it's gone. It's not there anymore, but people traveling down that road will sometimes still see that house, but it looks like it's either on fire or it's kind of like really not quite there. It's like if you look through a fire and you see the kind of waves of heat coming off of a foundation or a house, it kind of bends the light a little bit and makes the house look kind of creepy. Yeah, exactly. Shimmers. So they say that you see the house, but that you see the waves of heat coming off there, and it's not there. And as you travel towards it, it just vanishes. It's not there anymore. And further down the road near the Northwest Highway, there's a set of railroad tracks that I've talked to a number of people, and they said that they've come up to the train tracks, and the crossing guards are not coming down, but they look down the tracks and they see a light of an engine coming down. And they wonder, well, maybe I should stop because maybe the crossing guards are defective and I don't want to get hit by the train. So they stop, and this train's making no noise, but you see the light. So some people have got out of the car, looked down the train tracks, and some will see the light, others don't see the light, and then suddenly it just disappears. It's like a phantom train. And
Wow.
there's precedent for that in Illinois. If you remember that Lincoln's funeral train, after Lincoln was assassinated, was seen all throughout. When it left Washington D.C. to go to Illinois, to eventually where he was buried in Springfield, there are certain sections along the route where that phantom train was seen. One of them being in the town of Irvington, Indiana. And I was actually out there years ago with one of my members who was from Indiana, Lisa Crick, and she gave us a nice tour of Irvington, including a Masonic lodge that was out there, some private homes that were haunted by people. This train site location, the tracks are not there anymore, but this is where the train used to come through. You can see where there would have been tracks that came through. And then there's even a connection in that town to mass murderer Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, often known as Herman Mudgett from the Murder Castle. He actually is said to have killed some people, and they were actually found in one of the houses in Irvington that were later associated with him as one of the many people that he killed. And they were actually, some of them were actually found in the fireplace, bricked up in the fireplace or something, which was really, really kind of strange. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. But these trains, these funeral trains, they kind of go right along with spook lights, because the idea of spook lights, there's usually 4 main locations where spook lights are manifested, and one of them is long, narrow stretches of roadway, sort of like the Joplin Spook Light Road. They call it Spook Light Road. It can be along bodies of water, like Maple Lake, like other lakes that I know of where there have been strange lights. Cemeteries, and obviously Bachelor's Grove, perfect example of that. Spook lights being seen out there, blue lights seen from the 1970s, a red light, almost like a skyrocket being seen kind of whizzing up and down the main trail. And then also railroad tracks, where people have seen spook lights. I mean, the Gurdon, Arkansas lights, set of train tracks, the Mako train station in North Carolina, which is sometimes called Joe Baldwin's light. And then there's one over here in near Barrington, near the Northwest Highway, which might be a new spook light manifestation that's relatively new. I mean, relatively within the past 10 years or so that people have been seeing these lights. But the interesting thing I love about spook lights is that a lot of times there is no natural explanation for them. Many of these spook lights, like for instance the one in Joplin, was seen all the way back until 1881. That's long before the advent of the automobile. So, people that are trying to say, well, these lights are nothing more than car headlights or tail light reflections. Well, in some cases that could be true. And I have debunked several spook lights, including the one up in Watersmeet, Michigan, known as the Paulding light. We know for a fact those are nothing more than car headlights and tail lights. It's a very strange optical illusion. But there's one out in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It's Chapel Hill, Tennessee, one of the two. And I was out there, and that's a set of train tracks again. And I wasn't able to be out there at night because when I asked the local police, where this, I just finally went up to him. I said, I can't find this. Do you know anything about a ghost light or a spook light? He goes, yeah, there's train tracks right down there. But if you go on those train tracks, I'm going to have to arrest you. I said, oh? He said, well, I've been told that this, people that are on the train tracks, they're looking for the spook light, and they see this light approaching down the train tracks, and it's a real train, and they get hit and they get killed by the train. I mean, stupid people can't get out of the way when they can hear a train coming. So he was told by the owners of the train tracks, whatever train tracks train company goes through those tracks, to arrest anybody who's on those train tracks. So I was able to park my car down the road about a half a block and walk up to the side of the train tracks, to the crossing, which you're legal to be on. But if you started walking down the tracks themselves, then you could be in trouble. But yeah, these spook lights, they're all over the country, and this one in Cloverdale, Alabama, is going to be one that I'm really interested to see about that and be able to explore with that. And I'm hoping to attract some more people. Right now, it's just me and my friend Chuck, but I'm going to bring it up to the group again and see how many people would like to go down there and kind of share the ride. I can fit 3 or 4 people in my car. We could all just kind of share the gas and share the ride. How's the gas down there in your neck of the woods? Is it pretty reasonable now, or?
It's been dropping in price. Of course, where you have to truck in the gasoline, it's a little bit more expensive than piping it in. I was used to, I'm from Columbus, Georgia, and it's got a pipeline running through Columbus. So you have gasoline coming straight to Columbus via pipeline, and it's one of the cheaper places where you don't have a refinery. Here it's a little bit more expensive because it's trucked in, because there's definitely no pipeline here. All we have is a bayou here, which I'd love to explore with you sometime. I really love to take off with you on some of these things. It's just going to be next year before I'm going to be able to do much of anything.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We were talking about that, a whole bunch of places in northeast or northwest Arkansas, which is right there at the Oklahoma border, which is definitely on my bucket list. There is a para-conference in October in Little Rock. It's actually held at the MacArthur Military Museum, and you can look that up if you want to.
Sure.
It is definitely haunted. I was in there with a guy that was running a local paranormal radio show. Everybody's got one of those nowadays.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there interviewing a few people, and he was interviewing me for a pre-recorded show. And he wanted to hear, he wanted a paranormal experience. So he kept saying, there's the ghost here, make yourselves known.
Right.
He said that over and over several times. And he said, okay, spirits, I got to shut this show down and take a break. Where are you? I want to talk. And not in the headsets, but in his ear said, I'm right here.
Cool.
And he heard that, and he reacted like we were talking earlier. He just shut all his equipment down, walked out of the building, and promptly smoked about 3 or 4 cigarettes, one after the other, outside to calm down before he would come back in that building. By the way, you've heard of MacArthur. Yes, that MacArthur. Douglas MacArthur was born in this building.
Cool. Very good.
Douglas MacArthur was actually born in Little Rock, Arkansas, even though he called California home. He was just born here. Because it was a military base. He didn't really live here any amount of time at all. Maybe a matter of a couple of days.
So that military museum is actually in Little Rock, right?
In Little Rock, and they have a Paracon in there. They have not had it the last couple of years because of COVID. They're trying to get it back started. They're not advertising much yet. Hopefully they can get it back cranked up this year. I'm not going to be able to make it this year. Next year, hopefully I will get there. And maybe I'll have a table there and bring a laptop and show some of the stuff I have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we usually
that,
when we plan our events, we start planning them, even a year in advance, so we can start getting
yes,
some ideas of places we want to go. So I know next year for sure. I'm going to be going to England for 2 weeks, probably either in late May or early June. And that gentleman that I put up here for 2 weeks is going to put us up in his house for 2 weeks. So that saves us all the hotels. He's going to drive us all the way around and take us to every place we want to go see, including we're going to go into Scotland this year because I've never been to Scotland. So obviously we're going to go up and we're going to try to go to Castle Orkney, which is usually where people look for the Loch Ness monster. So I'll go up there. I'll have my binoculars and my camera's ready just in case something crests the water. Maybe we'll be able to see Nessie out there. And then we're going to go into Edinburgh and do some stuff out in Edinburgh. There's some underground vaults that we can explore. And
cool.
of course, just the normal tourist traps around here, Stonehenge and the Tower of London, the Highgate Cemetery, known for the Highgate Vampire, Westminster Abbey, the Jack the Ripper area where the Ripper victims were. He knows the locations, and the 10 Bell pub is still there. It was there when I was there in '88. I was there in '85 and '88, but we saw it on a Jack the Ripper tour that we took in '88. And now we can go back and spend some more time because, as I mentioned when we were talking a bit off air, or maybe it was some other show, I always forget. But when you go on some of these tours, unfortunately, I mean, they only give you so much time. You get off the
Right.
bus, you get to explore a little bit, you maybe grab lunch on your own at a pub and maybe pick up a couple books, and it's about time to get back on the bus. So you really don't have a lot of time to explore. So we're going to have a lot more time to explore these locations. And because I have the equipment that I didn't have back then, hopefully we can, I know we're going to go to a lot of places. And this is what one of my biggest thing was to, several things I want to actually do. He's trying to set up me to give a talk at the very prestigious Ghost Club of England. It goes back to the 1830s, where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Tom Parrott, Peter Underwood, Harry Price, and many others were members. I was a member for a while as well, honorary member. Hopefully, I can give a talk there. That would be, a feather in my cap. I would love to do that, talk for them. And then I don't know if you ever saw that show on TV called Most Haunted with Vet Fielding and Sarah O'Keefe. He's going to arrange, hopefully, that we can meet them in person and maybe even do an investigation with them somewhere, which would really be cool. Both of them have been my Facebook friends for years. And besides that, we're going to be going to locations where some of the very famous ghost photographs in England were taken. You probably remember the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, that apparition seen standing down the staircase. And we can go to that site. The Queen's House in Greenwich, England, where the Phantom Monk is seen going up the stairs. The priest that's seen in the pews in Westbury Church, and Sanford Orcus, and a whole bunch of other places. Plus, we're going to go into and see a lot of Neolithic places like Stonehenge, Avery, the Rollright Stones, the White Horse of Effington, the Long Man of Wilmington, Cernus Abbas, and Hadrian's Wall, and then
Yeah, I was about to ask about that.
yeah, and then of course anything, if you ever saw the movie Braveheart, those places where in Bannockburn or Bannockburn, I think they call it in England. Bannockburn is where the ground was literally just covered with people and soaked with blood. Yeah, I mean, there's you figured there's got to be something going on there. I mean, there's got to be something residual, and we have a chance to explore that and do some EVP. But just to go out and just touch those stones and just say,
Right.
I mean, these stones go back to like, the 1300s or something. That's the boundary between England and Scotland. The Hadrian's Wall would be just amazing.
That the Robins built.
Yes, exactly. And there's a very famous house in England called the Treasurer's House, And in the basement of the treasurer's house, there's a very famous story of an individual that was down in the basement when he suddenly saw a procession of Roman soldiers walking through the basement, but they were only seen from their knees up because they were walking on the original Roman road, which was lower than the current ground that they're walking on. And we're going to be able to see that exact spot where those Roman soldiers walked.
Wow.
So there's a lot of interesting places. I am so excited about going back, and I have a few friends going with me. Chuck is going to be going with me for the first week. He might be traveling back after that, but then Sylvia is going to spend the whole. Sylvia Schultz. I don't know if you know Sylvia Schultz. That name may not ring a bell. She would make a great guest for your show, and I could forward the information if you want to her about her. But she is an excellent talker, and she's got several books. She's an author of many books on the Peoria State Hospital, and she's a very lovely lady. So that would be a good guest for your show. She's going to be traveling with me for 2 weeks, and then I might have one other person. So we might have just 3 or 4. Paul's got a vehicle that can seat 7 people comfortably in there. So it's just like going on a little mini tour. I just have to get used to driving on the wrong side of the road again.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Guess what time it is?
Time to go.
Well, it's time for me to run a short video.
Okay.
Hold your ears. Hold your ears. It's
Sure.
a tad loud. And it's not country music.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's an interesting little thing I put together when we go past 12.
Okay.
So, I've got permission from WLFE-DB, since there's no shows on this late on any night on the whole network. Mine's the last show. They don't want me starting too early, but since there's no show after mine, I can go as late as possible. So we're basically into overtime. We'll go as long as you want to go.
Okay. Well, we can go a little bit longer. I have to get up kind of early, but not too early. So, I mean,
how early is kind of early for you?
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock Central Time. I have to get up, but you know, I mean,
I live in the country, and that's ungodly early.
Really?
If I'm up at 8 o'clock, that means I stayed up all night.
Yeah. Well, see, we go to a club on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we have to get up, and I have to get dressed and, you know, eat breakfast and all that stuff. It's not that far away, but it's a senior club. So, yeah, I am a senior. You know, I'll be hitting the big 70 in December. So I'll be 70 in December. I don't feel like it, except, you know, parts of my body kind of wearing out. But besides that, I feel I'm still sharp up here. So as long as I can stay sharp up in my mind, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, we are planning. We've been planning. You know, my biggest problem, Len, is that, you know, I procrastinate a little bit too much when people are asking me to do stuff with them. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I don't know if you know either of these people or not, but one of my friends and who was a former GRS member her name was Barb Heiser, and she used to live in this area, but then she eventually moved out to Monmouth, which is near the Quad Cities in Iowa, close to that area. And she started her own group called Small Town Ghost, and actually wrote a book called Small Town Ghost. But she gave me a very nice little write up. She, you know, I hate to say that, she calls me her mentor and everything. and that she was so happy that I got her into this field, and she kept telling us to come out to Mama, to a whole bunch of places to come out there, and I just kept procrastinating, and now she died and she's gone, and I got to feel
Wow.
so bad about that. Uh, and for years, this was something I also wanted to do, was go down to Atlanta, to Georgia area. I wanted to make a trip to the southeast, like I say, to go to maybe start in South Carolina to see Fort Sumter, and then go down to Georgia and then see, Georgia, Savannah. There's a ghost light in Screven, Georgia. I've never investigated. There's also Andersonville Prison, which is extremely haunted. It was a POW camp run by the Confederates that had Union soldiers that, just
Right.
so many of them died out there. And
Been
he's
there
running.
and actually investigated that place as a kid. When I
Okay,
was a
cool.
kid, back in the 80s, I called myself a kid during my first marriage, and
Okay.
didn't have a whole lot of equipment. I mean, how many people had paranormal equipment in the mid
In
80s?
1980, yeah. Yeah.
So that I actually investigated that place during a public event where you had a reenactment, and there was a very, very good President Lincoln impersonator there. And quite natural with all this kind of activity, stuff got stirred up
Mm.
to the point where they had a couple of horses that were there for kiddie rides.
Yeah.
These are older, supposedly very subdued horses, but they had some issues there because they can sense, animals can sense things we cannot.
Right.
We've long lost a lot of the use of our senses. I mean, we got some pretty big noses, but we can't smell anything compared to an animal.
Oh, like a dog, yeah, for instance. Yeah, they
Yeah.
can track a person by scent alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they can smell cancer. They can smell COVID.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
horses are really sensitive, and they were sensing something that day because there was a lot of energy. Because you're talking about a lot of people being around, and
Yeah.
you know yourself, you get some reenactors around, especially when they're working. Shooting at each other. You get a lot of activity, especially where you've had so many people die in such misery.
Yeah.
And you remember that's part of the problem with Camp Douglas that you and I both investigated, that they took away a lot of the fruits and vegetables, even though there was plenty of it around at Camp Douglas, because they heard about the misery going on down in Georgia. So they just, for revenge or just hate's sake, they stripped the fresh meat and fresh vegetables from the prisoners at Camp Douglas and gave a lot of them scurvy on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Vitamin C deficiency. Yeah.
And that was some horrible copycat stuff going on between Andersonville and Camp Douglas. So get there if you can. I don't know if they let you investigate
I will get there
or not.
Yeah, I will get there. I mean, I don't know if they investigate either, but I mean, if no one's watching, I'll pull out a recorder and I'll do an EVP session or something. It won't be a full-fledged investigation, but I'll do something out there. But I mean, I had a friend for many years that ran the Georgia Ghost Group. His name was Robert Honeycutt. Does that ring a bell at all?
Robert Honeycutt.
Yeah.
I knew a Bob Honeycutt.
Yeah, same guy.
Where's he from? The guy I knew was in Columbus.
Well, this guy was from Georgia somewhere. He ran a group called the Georgia Ghost Group. And he asked us for years to come out there. He go, yeah, I got a group. I can show you around and everything. And I procrastinated, and now he died. And I go, darn it. I mean, it's just crazy. So that's why, when people invite me to do things, I try to get out there to do them as quickly as I can, because you never know. I mean, if it's your time to go, it's your time to go. But I do plan on coming out to do something to the southeast one year. Like I said, South Carolina, Georgia, and if how long we would decide to spend out there. I mean, I would love to go out and try to go up to just the northern part of Florida, because there's a very famous lighthouse in St. Augustine that's very, very haunted that I'd like to investigate if possible.
There's
Then, of
there's
course,
an
I
old
mean,
church there, and
yeah,
there's a fort of some note there too
yeah,
in St. Augustine.
yeah,
Been there. Some prominent Indians from out west were in prison there, and
yeah,
that where the the Native Americans were in prison, no sunlight, improperly fed, and just locked away and were rotting in there. That is one of the creepiest places I've ever
yeah,
walked into.
yeah.
So if you can go to the fort in St. Augustine, by all means go.
Is that the one you're talking about? Is that something about the something de San Marcos or something like that? Or
Yes,
Castile de San
Castile,
Marcos.
right?
Yeah,
Castile
yeah,
San Marcos.
yeah, yeah. That is a
My
creepy
Spanish is
place.
not too hot. That
Yeah,
is a very
Ghost
very good
Adventures was
place.
out there, and
Yes.
they said that there was cannon fire that they heard. There's footsteps. There's supposedly a guy that was walled up in a wall. There was the commandant was in love with this girl, and somebody else was in love with this girl, and so he decided to kill the guy that was his competition and seal him in this wall. And they actually found this guy, you know, many, 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 many years later, chained to the wall and bricked in this wall. I mean, and you can actually kind of go in there. You kind of like have to duck under and go in. It's kind of a small little room, like maybe only like 3 or 4 feet by maybe 6 feet or something. And you can still see the shackles on the wall. And they say that's a very haunted spot right in there. Yeah, those are the kind of places, depending on how long we would be able to go down, because I would like to go from, like from Atlanta to Savannah. And Savannah is a very, very haunted city. They got a lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
old
yeah. Oh,
antebellum
yeah.
homes. They got a lot of ghost walking tours and ghost tours that you could do, and you could see a lot of stuff that maybe it might be the easier way of doing it, just to go on a ghost walk or a ghost tour or bus tour and see a lot of these places too. And of course, Bonaventure Cemetery, right in Atlanta, is one of the most haunted cemeteries in the world. There's a very famous video that was shot at Bonaventure Cemetery by an amateur videographer that was out there one day just videotaping. It wasn't even ghost hunting, and he actually sees this little figure of a boy, kind of like a whitish, semi-transparent figure walking like past these people, and all of a sudden he goes straight up into the tree, jumps straight up into the tree. And you can see him up in the tree, and then all of a sudden, I mean, this is a good, 15, 20-foot jump that he jumps straight up. And he's in the tree, then he jumps straight back down, and he wanders through the cemetery, and he disappears. And you
Wow.
can actually find that video if you just search Bonaventure Cemetery ghost video, and things just pops right up. It's an amazing video. And I don't think it's anything that was faked or anything, from what I can tell. I mean, there was actually real people walking past, and they didn't even pay. They didn't feel or sense anything nearby, because there was no reaction that there was something there. But he captured them on just some videotape. I mean, it's a little bumpy in some cases because he's trying to focus and zoom in on the person, but it's an amazing video, and it's supposed to be a very haunted cemetery. So that would be one of the places I'd like to go to as well. But then, like I say, I mean, I need to come down to your neck of the woods one year too, and do something with you. Maybe after things kind of settle down with you and Gail, we can all go out and do some investigating of some places that are on your bucket list too.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
I
by the
mean,
way, add Columbus, Georgia, my hometown, to your list in Georgia. It's not that far from Andersonville.
okay.
You have the Confederate Naval Museum. You probably need to contact. Last I heard, there wasn't a real paranormal group that they were allowing in there in Columbus, but occasionally they were letting the Phoenix City, Alabama paranormal group in there at night to hold some investigations at the Confederate Naval Museum. And
Okay.
I myself saw a full-bodied apparition in there.
Interesting.
You've also got the city of Westville, which is that used to be in further south in Georgia, but they moved it to Columbus. It's old, 1840s, 1850s group of buildings they've got set up like a town. And so you can go on tours of some very, very old buildings. And it's actually put in a spot where I used to live. I lived there. I lived at that location for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Next door, there's a golf course, and it's across the street is the Army Infantry Museum right there. And anything to do with the military, they've got an excellent tank display. They're expanding all the time. So you know yourself, when you get a lot of military hardware in a spotlight in one location like that, and it's right there where you can get to it on the south side of town. You don't have to go through all the hassles of going to Fort Benning, which is why they moved it. They partially closed Fort Benning to tourists. Used to, you just go in as you wanted to.
Right.
But after 9/11, they started locking the place down a little bit. And they wanted to move the trailer park because you could actually, where I used to live, because I knew planes by sounds. I could hear a plane crank up at the Fort Benning airport and tell you what kind of plane it was and how full it was loaded by the way the engine sounded. And I was talking to a friend of mine that was in the Army, and he went upstairs with it, and that was the last plane noise I heard there. And they got it bought out and put Westville there now. So people can't sit there and rent a trailer and spy on Fort Benning. Because all you had to do is have some trained ears to know the difference in airplanes. And I can tell you when an armed transport went and left for Fort Benning going somewhere. So I knew I could tell you the Army movements without even going on the fort. So they ended that. That's on me. That's my fault. But you got the Army, you got the Infantry Museum right there. You got Westville right there. You got 9-hole golf course right there. That's on me too. I told them to move it there. And that was one of the things I got for the Olympics back in '96. But it's also the end of the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk is not boarded up. Yeah, you're on your own going in that Riverwalk. It's not guarded. It's not set up at night. A lot of it's going through the woods, but right there on the river, of course, you know yourself, when there's a creek and there's a river, you had Native American villages.
Yeah.
And I myself have found arrowheads in that area. And being on that river walk at night, it is creep city.
Creepy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know you're not alone when you're walking on that river walk. It's nice concrete walks, very pleasant walk. Maybe have a few bugs, put some off on yourself before you go. But
and you got that running water connection, you got that running water connection where, the flow of natural running water is something that I believe that ghosts can actually harness to materialize. And that's why so many ghosts are seen in Chicago near running water. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you got a long bridge on the Riverwalk that goes over some wetlands and a creek there, and there's another creek kind of toward Fort Benning. Used to get in trouble there. Tie a 6-pack or 2 of beer to a rubber tube and then go rafting. Fort Benning didn't appreciate it because they claimed the creek was theirs. City of Columbus said you're in the city limits on this creek. Yeah. So you had people yell at you, but they didn't know which police department to call. So usually we just got away with it.
Right.
But all that's was originally Indian territory, and Columbus was sat there to fall right in the center of downtown. You have a drop off where you got to get out of the very tail end of the Appalachians, and you have a drop off, natural drop, where used to be the shoreline. About halfway up through Georgia is where the Gulf of Mexico used to be. So you got this natural drop off right there, and they built the town as a trading spot for fur trappers trading with the Native Americans, and they could also put mills or whatever right there running on that natural fall to generate power and to work machinery. Yeah. So that's how Columbus got founded. And the Riverwalk is a lot of history. It's about 10 miles long. It's a pretty good hike.
Well, if you think of
But
it this way, literally anywhere you walk in the United States is literally Indian ground,
yes,
because basically the Indians are the true Americans. You know, they were born and raised here. Basically, pretty much everybody else has their roots overseas, whether you're English, you're German, you're Polish, you're Italian, you're Irish. You all came over from
right.
overseas, you know.
And,
So
and fairly recently, well, you know, most of the
yeah,
people you're talking about came over here in the last 300 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's why
And
there's so much more history over in Europe than there will ever
yes,
be here in the United States. I mean, the very first settlements were what, Jamestown or something in 1620 or something, or maybe if you want to go beyond that, maybe the Vikings that came over, you know, that maybe the Nova Scotia area or something like that, or you know,
but
Canada, or but
that's where you can get to St. Augustine. That was the absolutely oldest place. The Spanish
yeah,
were pretty well established in St. Augustine before Jamestown.
right, yeah. I mean, you
And
think about that, and then you go, well, go to England, go to or Europe somewhere. I mean, they go back to 1066. They go back to the Middle Ages. You know, I mean, they go back to like not 4 digits, but 3 digits. You know, like the 800, 900. So I mean, the chances of having more paranormal activity is exponentially higher, you know, in places that have a longer history than we do. But I mean, we still have our share here, but I mean, if you go to places which I don't think I'll ever make it, but I mean, places like Auschwitz, you know, places, you know, during the Holocaust. I mean, there's got to be things going on there. Treblinka, you know, even the D-Day invasion in Normandy, all those people that were killed on the beach, you know, on the invasion, and I mean, even
uh,
like I say, the fight for Scotland's own independence. You know, when
mhm.
William Wallace, Braveheart. You know, it was portrayed by Mel Gibson. Obviously, he did a hell of a
How many
job.
people?
You know,
How many people died at Adrian's Wall? I mean, the thing was built there for
yeah,
a reason,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
it wasn't a friendly reason. They had on the wall. It wasn't just a wall. Most of it's gone now, been carted off for construction. But there were several forts. Every so often, every mile or so, there was
yeah,
at least an outpost. And then I
yeah,
think what was it? 3 outposts, and then they had a fort. And then
yeah,
you had 3 outposts or something, 3 or 4 little smaller outposts. Then you had a pretty good fort where they had a substantial number of troops.
yeah.
And that's a big investment, building a wall, especially with interconnected forts.
Right.
It's back then that was a lot of construction, and a lot of troops. So they were obviously fighting somebody.
Oh yeah, they were fighting. They were fighting the oppression from you know the English that didn't want to give them their independence. You know, and the English were more involved with lords and royalty and privilege and stuff like that. And they had eventually, I think they won their independence finally with Robert the Bruce,
Right.
who eventually became King of Scotland initially. And when they had their independence. But I mean, these are some of the places that I'm going to go to, and spend some quality time at. And I think that's going to be great. But I was going to ask you something too. I mean, did you get that picture that I sent to you of the field house over there at the when we were doing the investigation out of the old city cemetery? And I was trying to put myself in the same position that I
Yeah.
was when we took that picture out there. And I didn't know it at the time, but we actually went back there with my friend Paul because I wanted to do a little investigating. We actually did some EVP near where the Suicide Bridge was located, where so many people jumped. It was actually called High Bridge, but it was dubbed Suicide Bridge. But then right where that field house is, those baseball diamonds are where thousands of people are still buried, or at least hundreds of people and they were indigent. They were the poor. They were the people that had no. They might have died in one of those asylums. They had no headstone. They had no markers,
Right.
and they were just buried there. And we went
a potter's field.
Potter's Field, yeah. And we went out there to do an investigation. We were able to do something at Suicide Bridge without being too much disturbed. There was a few people walking past, but then we wanted to do something over there. But when we went there, darn it, they didn't have every single baseball diamond filled, and people were playing out there. So I said, "Oh, that ain't gonna work." So I
No.
couldn't sit in the middle of second base and try to do something out there. So I said, "We're gonna have to try to come back and." Maybe when he wants to come back here, my friend Paul wants to come back in maybe 2024. So he was here in 2022. I'm going to England 2023, and he's coming back in 2024. He says he wants to come back again. So I said, well, I can plan a ton of more stuff for us to do in the meantime, places that we didn't have a chance to see. But
if you go back out there to those baseball fields, take your glove. If he wants to go out to second base, give him a glove. Let him go out to second base.
Yeah. I mean, it was really loud. They had the lights on and everything, and because the parking is so expensive over there. I mean, if you pull into the area where the Lincoln Park Zoo is, you go through the turnstile, you get a ticket, and I swear the parking was, when we were there, I think it was $30-something or something, $30 or $40. Wow. He said, "I'll pay for it." I said, "No, well, you don't have to." He goes, "No, I want to." I said, "All right, so I'm gonna reciprocate when I go to England, because I'll pay for a lot of stuff when I'm over there, and put in. They don't call it gas over there; they call it petrol. And they don't do it by gallons; they do it by liters. And he says the gas was really expensive over there. He says he thought it was like $8 or $9 per liter. I go, wow, that's really expensive. But we'll have 2 or 3 people with us, so they can all pitch in. So it won't be a big hardship.
Gas is more expensive over there because they got higher taxes than we do.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. Of course, they've also got free health care and free education. That's what it's the drawback. We have low taxes, some of the lowest taxes for any civilized country in the world, but we don't get the free stuff that heavily taxed people get.
Yeah.
So it's just semantics and just how you want to run the country. Of course, we're one of the more outside the Muslim world. We're one of the most conservative nations on the planet, especially in the Western democracies. We've got one of the most conservative democracies.
Yeah.
A democracy is a liberal idea. The whole thing is set up. The proper name of it is a liberal democracy, because the democracy where one person, one vote, that's a whole liberal concept.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize that we have trouble governing ourselves because we are a very conservative democracy.
Yeah.
And
well, like here in this area, the cheapest gas that you can get is if you go to Costco, which I'm a member of Costco, and I just filled up my tank a couple of days ago. I paid $4.42 for a gallon of gas. I mean, that's the cheapest. I mean, you can find it. It's normally right now about $4.80, normally $4.70 if you don't go to Costco. And then if you go to the city of Chicago, once you cross over Cicero Avenue and you're in Chicago, then you get gas prices nearly $6 a gallon, because there's a lot of city tax and everything included down there. So I don't know what it is like down there in Arkansas per gallon of gas, but it's got to be cheaper. It's probably somewhere in the $3 range or something, right?
Just over $4.
Just over $4? Well, that's not bad.
Okay, it's dropping. I need to step away for about a minute.
Okay. Well, I'm going to probably have to run anyway, I think, because it's getting to the point where I'm going to have to take off. So
it is 12:30.
Yeah, I'm going to have to probably call it. So listen, I do appreciate you having me on and everything. It's always great to talk with you and everything. And hopefully I'll get down to your neck of the woods here soon so we can do something together. But I do have to kind of run at this point. I do appreciate you.
Now, be sure with your little event in October, see if you can put together a little bit of video, maybe the location where it is, and just do you've got a great voice for voiceover. Just make a 30-40 second video of talking about the same thing we talked about tonight. Who's going to be there?
Okay.
What's going to be there? And just send it to me via Facebook Messenger, and I'll play it for halftime here.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll do that. Give you some free airtime. I got in trouble doing that from another event. YouTube wanted to stop the video because the video advertisement was sending them what was their own website.
Yeah,
of course. So YouTube said you're sending somebody to a website that's not YouTube, and we can't have that unless you're getting something of value for this advertisement. So I said, all I'm really getting is goodwill, but goodwill is valuable. Yourself, you've built up all kinds of goodwill yourself over the years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I had to put yes to that mark, and YouTube stopped flagging me for stuff.
Yeah, I know they're kind of crazy about stuff. I get flagged sometimes when I'm putting stuff up, like EVPs that might have, and I can't help that the spirits swear at me or something, or they use foul language, and I put it up there, and they say, "Oh, wait a second, it's flagged because you used a 4-letter word or an F-bomb or something like that in there." I said, "Well, I didn't use it. The spirits used it." So I had to go in there and actually had to change my YouTube channel to make it where it was adults 18 years or older that could go that, and that way they could listen to all that foul language. YouTube's real crazy about that, which I can understand. Yeah,
I can understand. You notice in my intro, it's got got the warning on the front of it. So our whole network, WLFE, covers that with that little bit, and they're all set for adult settings. So
you mean I could have been? So you mean I could have been swearing this whole time and it would have been okay?
Yeah.
I don't like doing that anyway, though. But yeah. But I mean, sometimes you have to use a 4-letter word or something, because that's what the spirits are saying when they come back to you. They'll tell you, I'll use the word "fuck off" or something like that. That's what they tell you to do. I mean, you can't help it. That's what they're saying. I'm not saying it. And I go, wait a second, are you calling me an asshole or something? And if they do. I said, I think I'm a pretty nice guy, but they call me that all the time. I said, I don't know why. But it's kind of like almost like a private joke here that every time I'm doing something, the spirits and I never provoke or anything like that, but I don't know, maybe I'm talking too long with them and they get tired and they say, that's enough, like we need to go or something. So but I need to go myself, my friend. So listen, I really appreciate you having me on for this long. If I wasn't getting up tomorrow, I'd stay up a little bit longer for you, but I got to get a little sleep. My eyes are getting a little heavy here. I was up at 7 o'clock this morning. I had to travel all the way out to Dixon, Illinois, which is about 2 hours away from here, because Judy and Mary Huff's mother died July 30th. Paula Stanek was actually part of my group. She was there when that famous photograph was taken at Bachelor's Grove. The mother, Paulette, and then Judy and Mary were both there when that photograph was taken. And we went to a memorial service and had a lunch and came back. And then I was so tired, I zonked out of the couch for a couple hours. So I'm kind of tired right now. But Judy lives in Georgia right now herself, and she says she's coming back to Chicago. So I'll have Judy and Mary. They were members back 30 years ago, and it was like a 30-year gap where they weren't members, and they finally joined like a couple of years ago, and they've been members ever since. And I said, well, that's cool. We're getting some of the old blood back in my group, which is kind of nice. And they were some of the originals going all the way back to when that photograph was taken out there at Bachelor's Grove. So,
all right.
Well, listen, my friend, I appreciate appreciate you letting me come on the show and promote my thing here, and I'll get a little 30-second video clip out there to you. Maybe I'll stop over there one day during the week and film myself outside the building a little bit to show the venue, or maybe even get in a little bit to show everybody around real quickly, and I'll send that to you. Hopefully it'll be able to fit on in Facebook Messenger. I don't know if there's a stipulation of how big the files can be or something. I know emails, it can be a problem, but I'll get it to you one way or the other.
I've sent 45-second videos through Messenger with no problem.
Okay, great. Okay, then I'll do that then, and I'll send that to you, and I appreciate that. I really do.
All right. Well, good night. And,
all right, you have a nice night. You take care.
Happy hunting on all your investigations.
Yeah, you too. And take care, my friend, and say hi to Gail for me. I hope she's feeling better.
All right, I'll do it.
Okay, thanks a lot, Len.
All right, good night.
Okay, bye.
All right, that ends it for us tonight. We've gone a bit in overtime, as you well know, got the overtime thing. So I will have a guest next week. In fact, I'm pretty well booked through October. So I'm going to be busy here. Probably go ahead and booking for the rest of the year. But anyway, it's great that Dale could stop by tonight. And all I can say is goodbye and good luck. Happy hunting. And we'll see you at the next haunted location. Bones, get us out of here.
Thanks for watching our show. Be sure to tune in to next week as once again we journey way down south into Bayou Country for another heaping portion of Southern Fried Paranormal with Len Dorman and Bones. Make sure to like, share, and follow. Y'all come back now. You hear?
Good night.